Welcome to The Wing, the emotional and financial health check you never knew you needed. We provide tangible solutions for young women to build emotional health and wealth on their journey from school to motherhood. This is the podcast for young women in Australia navigating the big stuff: life, money, and motherhood. From high school to first homes, babies to bank accounts, we take you on an interactive listening journey that helps you make smart, empowered decisions every step of the way.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to another episode of The Wing. Today we have a returning guest who was very popular on our last podcast, Jess Norton. Hello, Jess.
Hi, honey. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. I love chatting to you. And look, Jess and I transparently speak a lot offline and have our own voice note conversation. So, which is where some of these topics are born out of. So it's nice to get Jess's positive persona and lovely voice onto the wing so that we can share some of our conversations with our audience, and hopefully you're able to learn something. So this episode will be a nice juicy one again. I think that's how we just have to explain Jess's podcasts. Money, money, money. For anyone watching the video on YouTube version, Jess is wearing green today because this represents cash. So that's what we're talking about. And I said I'm wearing white because I feel pale.
Lean into it. Lean into the energy, babes.
Yeah, I got to lean into it. Look, a little bit of self-tanner wouldn't have hurt anyway. Look, 31 weeks pregnant. I'm just hanging in, people. It's all good. So today we're talking about wealth creation, financial freedom, a bit of financial literacy, and it's all going to be coming from Jess's perspective. So again, not financial advice. Just want to caveat that at the beginning. But it's an experience that's very valid, very inspiring, and I think Jess learned a lot along the way. She's had some good times, she's had some tougher times, and we're going to share with you some ways that you may be able to look at money and financial freedom and wealth building in a different lens and make it so that it feels attainable to you, because I think that seemed to be the underlying theme of some of our previous conversations offline, which were that, why is it so difficult to get this information, or why do we struggle with it? And obviously we're talking to our listeners. Most of our listeners are young women, whether you've had kids or you're going to have kids, or you don't have kids or you don't want kids, it doesn't really matter. We've got some topics that we want to cover. So to give a bit of an intro, I'm going to throw the conversation over to Jess to start by telling us a little bit about her wealth creation journey and moving to the US and what that all looked like. So Jess, over to you.
Thank you. So when I saw this question, tell us about your wealth creation journey, I got a little bit uncomfortable because I'm like, ooh, am I wealthy? Like, we're going to be talking about the nitty gritty, and I don't know, I feel like talking about money for women seems like something that is still taboo, which is crazy. I don't think it is between you and I. And like you said, through our voice notes, nothing is off the table, and we share a lot. But I think I want to take it out of the voice notes and talk about wealth creation in a way that's just, I hope, lets other women know, you can do little things, you can do big things, you can talk about it. And in fact, we start from talking about it. And if I can do the things I've done with investing, in stocks, in crypto, in property, if I can move from Canberra to New York to LA, anyone can do it. Because when we talk about wealth and we talk about finances and investing, it sounds really scary. And I guess it is a little bit. But, if I can do it, anyone can. I dropped out of math in grade 11. That was the last time I took any sort of math, okay? I wrote a letter to the dean of my college convincing her that I didn't need to continue doing math because I hated it. I felt really like I was not smart throughout high school and college. I really excelled in things more like English and any hands-on creative things, fashion, design, photography, writing. Math to me, I didn't like it. And I excel in things when I like it and I understand it and I get conceptually what it is. And I am more of a creative person. But in saying that, in dropping math, I have still been able to, I think, invest in ways that are maybe look, I don't think I'm the best at investing, but above average for, when I have discussions with my peers, a lot of my girlfriends aren't investing. They aren't, putting money into stocks or crypto or property or something that's going to build their wealth. So I want to have this conversation because I think women need to be talking about it more. And if I can do it, anyone can. So I just really want to, underpin that. Really, my journey on wealth building is a journey. Like, it's still going. But I think my superpower is really doing a lot with a little. What I mean by that is I will use any resources around me. And I've had this ability from when I was as young as I can remember. I would make Barbie clothes from a very young age and sell them. I'd be like, yep, I'll make you this like Barbie dress that I've cut out of some fabric and like, I'll take your $2. I collected Pokemon cards from a very young age, total nerd in that regard. And we'll go back to the Pokemon card because, I've had these things that I've seen as even a little kid that are assets, Pokemon cards, selling things, being really thrifty and really scrappy. I think I am really scrappy and I've really learned from doing, but I've always used what is around me or what's been, in my sightline and learning from doing from a very, very young age. I've also been like a serial saver. As much as like I've taken some pretty high risk choices, I've always saved. And I think that comes from learning from my mum, who is extremely savvy and thrifty herself. She would always buy things on sale. She would talk about the cost of things. She would talk about, working for what you get. And she showed me that. She is like a workhorse. She is, and what is still the breadwinner, the homemaker, the mum, the carer, the, property investor. Like, she is all the things. And I really had a very, very strong role model from such a young age on like making things for yourself and making lanes for yourself and pulling up your sleeves and doing shit for yourself as well.
Isn't it interesting how you said a couple of things there? So one of the things was there was a conception that you had in high school, I think. I'm being a little presumptuous here, but it just reminded me of a misconception that I had in high school and beyond, which was that you needed to be good at math to be good at money. That is so false, isn't it? You just painted that for me. And as you were speaking, you were saying you're better at things like English and creative studies and that type of thing. I thought if we were at the same school, we would have been in the same classes for sure. But that's so fascinating because, yes, because you naturally associate math with money and you think, yeah, if I'm not good at that, then I'm not going to be good at money. So you're probably already creating an upper limiting belief on what you're actually able to achieve with money from way back then. And if there's young women out there listening, or if you've got daughters that might be in high school, like trying to break that barrier and have conversations about money that actually don't have, something to do with math, but we're talking about resourcing. And Jess, that was another thing you highlighted, is that you are making sure that you've got the right people in your network to help you along the way. Like, you're making decisions and you're coming up with your plans to create your wealth and do the things, but you've got professionals that are guiding you along the way, or that you're pulse checking things with. Having that right resourcing is what's going to assist. We don't need to know everything. You really don't. You need to know that you want to build wealth. That's probably the only thing you need to know. And then like you said, like your mum, she's thrifty. She passed on her thriftiness to you. And I think you watching that demonstrated in your household growing up as a live example of watching, her make these moves that allowed her to build wealth and create a great environment for you and the rest of your family to, see that in practice is what's been able to help you realize, okay, well, she did it, or she was the driver, but there was lots of different parts of the car that she was manufacturing from different places to get to where, you guys needed to go, for lack of a better metaphor.
Yeah. And like I said, so she was the breadwinner in terms of like property investing was not her job. She's, she was a nurse, registered nurse for 40 years. So she was going to a 9 to 5 and then she was also flipping homes. Like my childhood was a lot of, this is probably diving into the real estate side of things, but, flipping houses was almost like a passion project for her where she would renovate and sell. And then she used that ability and skill of hers outside of her 9 to 5 to create additional wealth. And, I don't know where I first heard this. I'm sure everyone else has heard it, but the average millionaire has 7 different streams of income in order to have that wealth. And that's something that I heard. Again, don't know where or when, but I'm like, okay, I can't just have one 9 to 5 and that's going to give me the life that I want. It also will then bind me to a 9 to 5 life. Don't know where I heard it, but that's sat with me. I need to do more than just the one thing. And I've always done more than one thing. Don't think there's been a time where I've had one job. I've always had in my career, of course, I've worked for agencies and I've had my 9 to 5, but on the side, I've done keynote speaking, I've lectured, I've been a part of not-profits, I've been selling things on the side, again, talking about the resources around me. I've used my clothes as a currency. I may have bought things, but I've likely sold them. A lot of my friends are like, your wardrobe is constantly overchanging and circulating. And I'm a massive thrifter. I will buy things, but I will sell things. And I use most things as a currency, or I at least try and get a return on investment on most things that I make decisions around. And nothing is beneath me as well. I want to share this because last time we spoke, what did you say? I was fancy in LA and, my apartment on Sunset. Okay, fine. But, there was a time not long ago in the pandemic, I'm going to share this, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people unemployed. Most people I knew in the US lost their jobs. I was very fortunate to have a job for most of that year, but I looked around and I lived neighboring suburb to Beverly Hills. There was times where I'd make 100% profit on furniture I found on the street, that I would walk from the street to my apartment courtyard and I would sell a 6-seater dining table for $700 to someone. That's 100% profit on my goods. Okay. Nothing is beneath me. And if I see something and I'm like, cool, I can make money on that. I'm flipping that ultimately. And it's nice furniture. I'm not doing anything gross because I'm also a germaphobe, but nothing is beneath me. I will carry a 6-seater dining room table down the street of LA and sell that.
I love that. That falls into no, I love it. It falls into the Facebook Marketplace conversation because Jake always because on the previous episode, I revealed that I picked out all the things I didn't like in his house and I sold it because I thought, well, what's the point of it sitting in these cupboards when we could probably get some cash back for it? And he constantly teases me about it but I think it's a wasted opportunity if you don't. I think getting rid of the things, I think it's extremely thrifty. And what you said as well, do you know what? I actually hadn't heard that about having 7 different revenue streams. I've heard about having different revenue streams, and that can also sound overwhelming because it's like, oh, does that mean I have to have 7 jobs, or does that mean I have to have a business and a job and a side hustle, and what does that mean? But you just highlighted that it doesn't mean that. It's a revenue stream. So wherever you're getting money from, whether that is thrifting your wardrobe or finding something else that's thrifty to sell and make a profit on, like keynote speaking, great one. Didn't even think of that. That's something that would take up, some hours of your time, but it wouldn't take up weeks and months. To monetize as many things as you can in as many touch points as possible, I think is so valuable because you're teaching women to kind of look outside the box and think, okay, and you might have a 9 to 5 and that might be your constant and that's your safe place. But then outside of that, there's still a lot of hours in the day that you're able to, a day and night, that you're able to come up with different options. And then you're talking about bigger revenue streams, when you're investing in things like property or crypto or stocks, whatever that may be. So valid, and thank you for explaining that. I agree. I think nothing should be beneath us. We got to do what we've got to do.
Yes. Going back to, I think, wealth creation, I also want to talk about early experiences with investing. When I was 18, my grandfather said that he was going to give me $500, which at the time was a lot of money, to put into stocks. Did not know what that meant. Okay, sure, awesome, sounds fancy, let's go. And I remember that experience, and my first ever stocks were in BHP in Australia. And to be honest with you, didn't really understand what that fully meant, but I knew that I was looking to my grandfather who, as a young girl, he represented wealth to me. He was probably a model of someone that like had a lot of money, which by the way, that has completely changed since leaving Australia and living in places like New York and LA, like what it means to be, wealthy and rich. I think places like LA and New York will really show you what is on the very highest end of that. Looking around literally at the size of mansions and homes and cars that people drive and things that you can do, that's obviously changed. But when I was a young girl, there was models to me of like what it meant to have money. And so trusting in my grandfather, I was like, great, this is something that I'll probably need to know about. I don't understand it, but let's go. And I left that money there and I started to just find an interest in like, okay, what does it mean to have stocks? And I just used that inquisitive nature that I think I have. And honestly, I think most women have around how does this grow money? And what do I have to do that? And the answer was actually let it sit there. So that was just chilling. So that was another sort of early on experience where I was like, okay, this seems like something I don't know anything about, but I'm going to lean into just learning a little bit. And what do I need to do? Do I need to feed that? Do I need to save there? Like I said, always been a great saver from even being in primary school. I don't know if you had this, Katey, but we had dollar mites.
Yes.
For
Yep.
bank. Okay.
Yep.
I would definitely like pocket little, $2, $1 here from my parents' car and like put it in my little Dolomites yellow sleeve and go and put that into my savings account from when I was like 7, And actually that Dolomites account is what bought me my first car.
Wow.
Saving from when I was in primary school. So, these are all sort of basic things like save money, get money. But I think the interesting things like since then is like the relationship with money, how you can use it to build wealth. And we can sort of dive into particularly the property piece. But just being resourceful. Just be resourceful, whatever that means to you, and take an interest in things that give you a curiosity. That's just like general advice because I'm definitely not an accountant. I'm not a financial advisor, but I do think I have an above average view on building wealth.
And doing the small things, like it is about saving and putting things away when you can and not thinking like you need to have a ton of money to invest in the stock market or you need to, there obviously are limits and buffers to everything that you're going to invest in, but just following that curiosity that you might have and listening to, and if you are curious and you've done all your research and there's things you just simply can't find out, then the next thing to look up is who does know about this, and then
who does know about it.
Yeah. Exactly. And then you'd be surprised, even when you become aware of the industry or the type of person, you might be surprised who you already have in your network. You'd be like, oh, that's right. Oh, my brother's an accountant. I could probably ask him that. Or, you just starts to open your mind a bit. But I think, not looking over the smaller things that you can do, that you can, invest in and set and forget and do things that way.
Even listening to one podcast as well, Katey. Like I listened to a podcast on Emma Greed's channel the other day, and actually I'm having a mind blank on her name, but she gave some really good advice on setting up accounts for when you have a baby. Like actually starting from when you have a 6-month-old child, what you can do to ensure that they have wealth through investing in stocks and low risk options. And so, I'll link all of those for people and send you those on because take 45 minutes out of your day to learn something that could set you up for success or your family up for success. And I actually went ahead and did those things immediately because I was like, I want my son to have way more opportunity than what I had because why wouldn't you? We're trying to set up legacy here. And 45 minutes is not a lot of time. You can do that while you're getting a mani-pedi. And I actually want to say something. I want to dispel something because you hit on something really nice there, which is it can just be a small thing. I do not believe in this bullshit where it's like, don't buy your latte, save $5 on a latte, and then you'll be able to have XYZ. You'll make $1 million in 5 years. It's like, girl, my mental health matcha is the best $6 invested in my day because that allows me to do everything else. Okay. So definitely dispel that little one. But you know, that's not a resource to
This podcast is a resource, so I think that has become a resource. Your mental health matcha is extremely important. And that's the thing. I know there's I can't believe it ended up on the news. I think it probably still is on the news that, like getting avocado on toast is stopping you from getting your first home. I just think these things are ridiculous. They're unhelpful. It's just getting in everybody's head. And, there's things that you need to enjoy life in the meantime, and you can still enjoy those things. Get your mental health matcha and get on with your day. That's
Yeah.
just what we might need to do. Oh, I love it. Jess, if you are comfortable to go into this, we'd love to hear about your property journey.
For sure. So property has always been around me, like property investing, moving homes. And again, this starts with my mum. I mean, my mum was a single parent for a while, and seeing her also come from, I'm just going to say truthfully, like a poor family herself, what she's been able to do and grow from using property as a vehicle was really and is really amazing, particularly for the times. I mean, we're talking about the 90s. Like, here's my mom, single parent, working as a nurse, and she is buying a home when I am like 5 years old, I think. And then is when it began, from when she would renovate and sell and flip homes. So it really started property as like me understanding this is a vehicle for wealth from a very, very, very young age. Again, I want to emphasize, like, she also did a lot herself. Like, she's a DIY person, and I'm like, oh cool, like if I can actually make a space profitable. Like, I can look at something and see the potential in something. And that lends itself to, I think, the successes I've had in marketing, because I'm like, how do we make this its full potential? How do we bring this idea to life? What do we need to do to create? And then, enterprise from there. So my experience with property has always been in my life. There were times where my mum and my stepdad at the time, they bought the house next to us. We moved next door because that was like a decision they made for their property portfolio. That also gave me the resilience, I guess, to like be uncomfortable in like renovations and like see something come to life. Property's always been around me. I've always had that ingrained in me. So then when I was 22, like I said, always been a saver, always had multiple jobs, always been selling something on the side. I was like, I want to buy a home for myself. An amazing opportunity came by where I did buy a home when I was 22 years old, which I was a baby then. I was a baby. That lesson in buying a house that I then lived in was like a massive financial responsibility, like paying off a home at 22, single 22. Okay. Like that was my income, paying off this gigantic loan. That is when my first experience started around becoming a property investor. I then want to sort of pause because at that time I bought a home in Canberra where we grew up. And then 2 years later, I moved to the US. So that became an investment property. There was so many times, again, like what people see on Instagram or, people's idea of what's fancy or what I do in my life, like there has been a lot of struggle behind any sort of glitter that you see. When I first moved to New York, I was not rich. I was poor. That was a very high risk decision, but I made that decision because I was like, I need to take 10 step backwards in terms of financial, cash in the bank in order to excel my career for the long term. Like I want to play with the biggest people in this game, and that is in New York City. So let's fucking go. And so this is like tying back to the beginning where I said I collected Pokemon cards because I had this house. It was at the time, I think, negatively geared. I was still paying things like property taxes and, any maintenance, making sure that my tenants were happy. I wasn't making a profit on that place at all. And it was at a time where I was struggling. Like there was a month in New York where I didn't have a bank account set up because I didn't have a social sorted out yet. And my, horror story, this is a complete horror story, but my accommodation fell through when I moved for this job that I had. Also the currency Australian dollar to American dollar at the time, horrific. So
Mm.
I was looking at my bank account like, how am I going to pay? How am I going to pay for my home loan? I sold even my Pokemon card from when I was in grade 3, a holographic Charizard card, to pay for my flight to go to New York. So talk about like pulling resources.
Mm.
I'm pulling all the resources to get there. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of struggle and a lot of times where I was like, I'm sorry for swearing, but like, fuck this house. Like, this is a giant financial responsibility that I have where I've taken a gig that is at the moment costing me money and I'm trying to figure out like the New York grind. I'm trying to like excel my career. And there was many times where I thought I need to get rid of this house, but it just didn't make sense for me for the longest time. And I had to ultimately like try and forget about it. And I always paid my mortgage. I would never got like so in the red where I couldn't afford it legitimately, but there were times where it was very close. So after a year and a half of New York, I sort of started to figure that out, like the life there, and I excelled in my career and I got into a place where, I wasn't living in the middle of Queens and commuting 2 hours into the office, and I started to have a lot more cushion and a lot more financial income in my career in New York where I did forget about this property investment. And then fast forward so like I said, I bought my home when I was 22. Fast forward to 2020, which was just such a pivotal year in so many ways, where property prices skyrocketed. And I was like, I think this is the time. And I looked at the house, I spoke with my property guy, and it was such a payoff. I made $250,000 on that.
Wow.
In
Yeah.
7.5 years. Yeah. So I think like I said, I dropped math. Don't really like math. Don't really like dealing with like only numbers of things. But the concept of like buy something at a certain price and then sell high, like buy low, sell high. That is just like the biggest piece of, advice that has sat with me. And I'm like, this is the time to sell. And so as many times as I was like, this house is really, it's questionable for me to have this right now, it did pay off. And it paid off in a big way. And that was like my biggest win as it relates to property. And the next moves around property investing are definitely going to come at the end of the year. I mean, I also want to caveat that like things have gotten progressively more crazy in the past 10 years where affordability is a massive factor. But I'm really proud of the decisions that I made along the way for that.
I think that's a really amazing insight into your personal journey and a nice reminder, because what I think as well, the misconceptions of going into the market, it's like when, buy low, sell high. When is low? And obviously it's difficult to get that visibility particularly for first-time investors or first-time homeowners. But thinking about as well, at that juncture in your life, that was the right time for you. You obviously had a deposit, you had the means to purchase a property, you had the right advice, and you went ahead and you did it. So for you, that was your buy low, because that was when you had the lowest amount of risk. This is obviously before you moved overseas, but like you had you had your challenges along the way, but at the time of purchase, that it was a lower risk category, I suppose, to make that actual decision. So maybe even looking at it through that lens, which is okay, well, which is what I say all the time, because people are like, oh, wait until we get to the market, till I heard interest rates are going to go down in 6 months, or, we'll just wait and see, which are all valid reasons. But also, if you've got your finance, you have a steady income, you've got access to cash and or equity, you are ready to move if you want to move, if it's a principal place of residence, you want to move into something, or you're ready to invest, you just need to get that money into something to grow ASAP, then that is your buy low moment. That is this is the right time for us. And then I think the key there as well is something that you said, is that you held on to it for 7.5 years. And I've heard this before, that like 7 years is the magic number. That's when your property will double in.
Win. Like it's not a win, which is actually the opposite of my experience with my family, which was like yearly they would flip homes. Like that's a different strategy. There's so many strategies within property as well, but this is the one that worked for me and like my goal, because like I said, that property was negatively geared, or
Yeah.
Neutral at the time. So my win came on the selling of it, not necessarily the income from my renters. So there's so many strategies within property as well. There's so many opportunities on how you want to structure it.
Exactly right. And, with it being negatively geared, you were in it for the growth. So it was a growth property for you. There's other situations where people might invest in property that are, cash flow positive. So they're positively geared. And
Yep.
those properties, sort of making you money along the way. Very hard to find, by the way. But if you've got a growth mindset and you're happy to do a bit of a set and forget, or maybe the house will do its thing for you for a little bit, like you moved into it there in the beginning. So, it did actually, provide something back for you in an immediate way. But
Living.
if you're looking for that long-term growth, investing in property in that way, as you said, is a strategy, and that overlaps like as a principal place of residence and an investment, or you go just principal place of residence, or you go just investment, or you do a bit of both, or you go down the renovation flipping road like your mum did. So, there's many other options as well. Those are just some things, but to talk about it and give ideas and demonstrate how it can actually work is so valid.
I think you've hit on something which is also finances, money, investing. It's a big emotional piece as well. It's like you also need to think about what sort of a person are you? Are you a high risk person? Are you like a quick win, instant gratification person? Are you happy to set and forget person? Like leaning into a strategy that actually works with your like emotional attributes is a smart thing to do, or else it's going to make you feel really nervous.
Love that. And you're going to feel nervous anyway, but that's exactly right. Like what you said, like you're playing to your strengths. What's your risk tolerance? Are you a high risk person and you're ready to just dump money at anything and just hope that something works? Or do you have an abundance mindset? Do you have a scarcity mindset? We're talking about this as well. Like I think we've both landed in the same bucket here. We've come from a scarcity mindset, but we're growing up, but we're trying to move to an abundance mindset, which can be difficult, especially if you haven't yet seen those wins. It's terrifying.
It's so difficult. Like I said, I mean, I had like a single mom raising me, and I'm like, I think my scarcity mindset, as much as she's also been such an incredible leader and like shown me what I can do, like I do have fear around money, even though I've made like a large purchase, like a home, I've taken some large risks. Like there has been a little bit of fear around, there is fear currently around money for me, because for me, money enables freedom and it enables choice. It's how we can play in the world. And I am trying to shift from being more of a scarcity mindset to abundance, because I think that's actually going to unlock my next level of entrepreneurship. And my partner is really helping me have that belief, because he's more abundance mindset than me, and we are different money archetypes. So, it helps that he's a straight white man in America who grew up here, and I an immigrant woman that did not. So I'm trying to steal all of his audacity as much as I can.
The audacity. Oh, absolutely. And I can see the similarities as well in Jake. It's funny because he grew up with the scarcity mindset, single parent family, and he's very much self-made, but now that's not his reality anymore. He's gotten more of an abundance mindset. It absolutely terrifies me sometimes. I'm like, I don't think we need to spend that on that. And then he's making fun of me for selling things on Marketplace.
What's the return on investment of everything, Katey?
Yeah. It's one of my income streams. Leave me alone.
Exactly. Yeah, yes. I think you hit on something there with both of our partners being, self-made. My partner as well did not grow up. He didn't inherit wealth, but he had around him the music business of LA. Like he see like the possibility. He's seen that. He's seen that in his 40 plus years of life. So he's seen the potential, right? And I think that, I saw the potential from my mum, but then when I came here, I also saw, wow, there's another level unlocked. So I do think that like seeing what is possible is so important in order to like inspire people to, go one more.
Exactly. To open your eyes and surround yourself with different environments, different people, and, whether that is your partner or, that's your network, that's your friends, that's, physically where you live. Yeah, like you said, I love that. You've unlocked this whole other world of possibility, and now you're not like, yeah, you've shifted your perspective to aim for different things. It's so relevant. This is a big, scary question.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone hears the word crypto and they run in a different direction. But could you tell us a little bit about your crypto journey?
For sure. So first of all, the first time I experienced or used crypto was Bitcoin in 2014. I wish that I owned Bitcoin from 2014, but I used it as a means for like buying something online. And I used it as a token because it was like, this is such a new thing. I think, fast forward to today, or when I started to have an interest and an experience myself with using it for building wealth was 2020. Again, pivotal year in so many ways, where everyone was talking about crypto. And I do best with the most amount of data. I'm like, tell me about this thing. What are you doing? Like, we're having a barbecue in my apartment building. And I'm like, what are you doing with crypto? Like, I'm just trying to get from friends, like mainly guys. In fact, I think all men. I'm like, tell me what you're doing and why you're doing it and give it to me in like, the way that in a non-scary way, all of the details. I guess I didn't want to feel left out. I think that's what it was. I was like, okay, this seems to be something like in the culture conversation right now, 2020. I'm selling things on Marketplace. I accidentally started my company. I had just broken up with, a big relationship. All the things were happening. So I was like, okay, let's be curious about everything. So I looked at crypto as something where I was like, I'm not going to use this as like a safe investment. This seems very volatile. This seems like a question mark for me, but I am seeing a lot of people, in tech, in San Francisco, in LA, in New York, like these crypto bros making a lot of fucking money from it. So like, why can't I have a little slice of the cake? So I looked at like, what have I got to give that won't make me upset if I lose it? Because this to me seems like something I'm still trying to understand, and women don't invest in things they don't understand. What amount of money can I give to it? So that's the first time that I put play money into crypto. And I looked at it from like, okay, well, there's like your big players, you have your Bitcoin and your ETH. Then you have like altcoins, which are just sort of like a little bit more niche and a little bit more hard to understand and way more high risk. This was also the time of NFTs, which I did learn what not to do in NFTs. But conceptually, that was an interesting thing for me to get curious about because it's sort of like the world of art, and it's the world of demand and interest. Like something has value so long as somebody wants it. And so conceptually, NFTs were very interesting to me, but I did not win in that space because I was nervous about the decisions to make. But I think if I approached it now, knowing what I know, I could have made some quick wins there. But anyway, going back to crypto, put some play money into an account there with, I guess, the OG crypto coins, Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I've just watched it. Like I said, I just wanted to play in the space. I watched it over the years. The play money has paid off. The play money has paid off. And I think that curiosity, I kept that theme of like buy low, sell high and play this game of doing that and not putting anything, like I said, this was not my stocks. That's completely separate conversation. But just to see like high risk, what's my tolerance? What's my tolerance to actually see crypto, which is super volatile, go from like a massive win to like a week later being sliced in half or tanking? Okay. I was like, oh yeah, cool. Like I've lost all my money on crypto. And then today I'm like, okay, cool. Like I've made significant money there.
It's such a roller coaster, isn't it? It's like one day you're really crypto rich and then you're like, oh, is this the high point? Oh, just leave it in I'll look at it tomorrow, and tomorrow it's completely tanked. And you're like, oh,
gambling.
Okay. No, I'm not.
It's gambling.
I'm crypto broke.
Yeah. For me, that's like the gamble side of the investing.
Yeah.
And when you think it's at an all-time high, you're like, wait, it's not high enough. I did like talk with my girlfriends at the time. I moved back to Australia temporarily, about this. And at the time I was just having conversations about crypto. And I really feel like you and maybe one or two other people in terms of my girlfriends knew anything about it.
I did the exact same thing as you did, which was speak to the people. We had some friends that actually worked in the space.
Mhm.
So we had dinner at their place and I just asked 21 questions about it because I was like, if you work there, then you're obviously making an income from this thing. And if I can learn as much about it as possible, and yes, I remember speaking with you about it. I was like, oh, cool. Jess knows about it too. It was like we had this secret little world of women that did crypto.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't be a secret, right? Like, I think the
No.
conversation today is more about like dispelling like cash and money being a taboo subject and like investing being scary. Like, sure, okay, but like let's lean into the fear because there could be like a real nugget of opportunity there. So yeah, my crypto journey is still going, but I'll just speak frankly, like I'm trying to think of the actual percentage of growth without actually telling people how much money that I have. Probably 10x'd my money in crypto at the moment. As of today, from where I began. Yeah, I think that's correct.
Which is incredible. Like you think about that from something that you knew nothing about to some barbecue conversation to your own research and then just getting your foot in the door and just putting some pennies in the mix to see what they do and then to 10 times your money is phenomenal. And now that is officially one of your revenue streams. So
it is. Yeah.
If there's ladies listening to this that are curious about crypto, give it a go. See how you go.
Start with $100.
Yeah, exactly. See how you go with it. I remember in 2020 as well, I thought, oh my gosh, the world's ending. Money is invalid. This crypto thing is coming up. So I spent hours and hours and hours learning about crypto. I was just watching YouTube videos and I was like, oh, okay, so that one does that. And I like to understand what the function of the different cryptos were because they all have a function.
Yeah.
They're all like a SaaS pro. They're kind of like a software as a service. Like they're all doing something. Like, they might facilitate transactions or they might provide this network provider with a different network or something. But once you understand what they actually do and you can see their function in the marketplace, it's sort of like, oh, okay, then I can see how there's a need for that. And, and then all the cryptos that can trade off one another, starting with your blue chip cryptos like your ETH and your Bitcoin and stuff like that. But again, looking into it yourself and doing that own research so that you can get your foot in the door and start to understand because you'll be amazed at how much content you then would be able to understand when you're reading it or if people are talking about it. You're like, oh no, I get what they're saying.
Yeah. And you and I have spoken about this. Women have we can investigate things that we want to know about. If we want to know about who's dating your ex-boyfriend, your girlfriends will be able to tell you in a matter of minutes, an hour, who, where, what, when, why, how, who's talking to who. Like we have that skill to dig. We can dig, we can find information. I think when we apply that skill set to something that actually benefits us, that's where the wins are.
Exactly. I love that analogy. I thought, why is it so easy to find out, so-and-so is breaking up. Oh my gosh, let's find out who, what, where, why, when. And we can do that. But for some reason, it's a lot more difficult to figure out our investment strategy. And it shouldn't be because you apply that exact same skill set to something more productive and, you're able to actually get an outcome from it. So I love that you highlighted that. I think that that's a really good metaphor or a really good example.
Yeah. I mean, put the skills into something that's going to give you a payoff.
Yes. Yep. Quality advice. Now, Jess, we've touched on a few things in this topic, but if you could nail it down to one thing, what's the main misconception you had about money and investing and why or how did you solve it?
I don't think I have one. I have three.
Okay.
I have three
Go for it.
that I want to talk about. So number one, I think we touched on, you don't have to be good at math to be good at money. You actually just need to understand concepts and you need to understand and get curious about returns on investment. So that's the biggest one. You definitely don't need to be like a math genius to be good at money at all. Number two was that we should not be quiet about money as women. We should be talking about it. We should really be talking about salary, what we're doing. There's like this secret shame around money and it sucks because it's like it's 2025. I think we should be, more transparent with each other on what we're doing to win and not have it be such like a hush-hush thing. And with sharing information, you're helping other people. And I want to give an example of this that was a very hard lesson to learn about not talking about money and, the perceptions around worth. And this was an experience of mine in New York where I was headhunted for a role by a CEO of an agency where I ran the direct digital marketing for American Express in New York City. Big role, reported into the CEO. And like I said, this position was created for me. And then we as a unit did so well in the agency where my CEO said, Jess, I want you to find another you to run it for the consumer side of Amex. You're running the B2B side. I want another you so that we can go ahead and build this out. Great. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, who am I going to think about in my network here? And this guy came to mind who I thought would be a really good fit. And I said, hey, are you looking for an opportunity? This is what it is. And he said, okay, cool. What's the salary? And he's like, I'm guessing it's this. And I was like, sure. I mean, you can ask, and I didn't share what I was making at the time, but I felt deeply uncomfortable, Katey, because what he said to me was $100,000 more than what I was making.
Right.
So this man has come in and he has said, oh yeah, cool, this opportunity sounds great. For me to take this, I'm guessing the salary would be X. And my heart sank because it was $100,000 more than what I was making. This man went through the interviewing process and was offered that position with that salary.
Whoa.
Yeah.
My gosh. How long did you stay there after that happened?
Honestly, 3 months, but not because of the money, because I was actually very happy. For me at the time, it was a lot of money, but I was like, wow, a man has come in here and asked for $100,000 more. He was transparent in a way where he was only going to take it for $100,000 more. And that was a really hard lesson for me to be like, I need to be talking more to people, other women and men, regardless, on like what they're making for what role. I don't think we should be quiet about it.
And I think it's another upper limiting belief because it's like you may know about some of your friends' salaries or you might be familiar with a certain industry and understand what that industry pays for certain roles. But everyone's quite cagey about it, which is fine because there's obviously, some privacy there. But if we're more open about it and set different expectations, it sort of shifts your mindset and your worth and you think, okay, well, why can't I be paid that? Or like changing your mindset around what, your worth rather than thinking, oh no, I'm in this bucket and I'm just going to stay in that bucket. And obviously it's different industries and different roles and different opportunities. But, if you're in a situation where you're able to, you could maybe extend your expertise in your current field or come up to a different salary bracket that you may not have considered before. We're held in a bubble and we're not aware of it. It just becomes our reality. We're like, okay, well, that's the ceiling. That's sort of where the cap is. You can't go past that.
Yeah, talking about money, it does make people uncomfortable. From that experience, I actually talked with a girlfriend of mine who is 6 years my senior and an absolute boss. I asked her, if you're comfortable, can you share with me like how you structure your salary and like what you've asked for before? Because you are a role model to me and I want to be able to have that level of success and the audacity, if you will, to ask for what I deserve. So that's another, misconception around money is I think women should be talking about and at least sharing, advice around how to get what we're worth. Because I'll tell you right now, a man will have no problem asking for double. And that is a hard lesson that I learned. But a great one too, like learning what not to do and learning to, maybe shoot higher is a big one. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Very valid.
Thanks. The third one would be, a misconception around investing is that it's a boys' club. Like it feels like a boys' club. It definitely feels like it. It doesn't have to be. And I think that the language built around investing and finance, it doesn't sound appealing. It sounds complex. It doesn't sound fun. But there is people and women that I would really recommend following and getting familiar with, like Mrs. Dow Jones on Instagram, like gives very functional, quick pieces of advice. There's other ones I'll send to you to maybe link in the podcast. But, you know, it's not a boys' club.
The boys' club mentality is definitely something that I felt as well. And you just simply look around and you think, oh, okay,
Look around.
this is
Yeah,
not for
sure.
me. Yeah.
I had this really pivotal conversation, which ended up with me crying in a diner in Dubai when I did my little eat, pray, love journey before moving back to LA. And I stayed with a friend that I went to Miami ad school with. I was saying, like, I'm really on this pursuit to get back to the US. And he's like, like talking to me about how like I should be grateful for what I have. And I'm like, I am grateful for what I have, but I really have been working towards something and I don't really feel like giving up on it. And he was like, but like sort of check your privilege type of thing. And I was like, pardon? And I'm like, yeah, I can understand my privileges because I have a couple of them, but he didn't understand where I came from. He did not understand like, okay, cool. I had a single mom as a parent who was not wealthy. I have not gotten money from my family. I have worked my ringer off to get where I am fully by myself. And in fact, I didn't have a lot of the privileges that he had. Like his family is super wealthy. He lives in Dubai. And it's like, wow, dude, like you're telling me to check my privileges, which like we have different ones. But as it relates to like my successes, where I am, like I got here because of my hard work. And he actually didn't really understand my backstory of like the scrappiness and like, when I lived in New York and we went to school together, I had a fucking tree coming through my window of my bedroom. Okay. Like it was not glamorous. And everything that I have now has been like really scrappy hard work, me pulling resources, like me figuring it out, learning from doing, looking at role models, like seeing what's possible, putting myself in those scenarios where I'm uncomfortable as fuck. Like I don't come from these worlds, but like here I am in LA around really glitzy glam, a lot of wealth, rich situations. But yeah, it was super interesting to see that someone who was like a friend didn't understand that about me. So I hope that the convo today was like, okay, cool. Like this girl will literally dumpster dive and sell shit in the face. Okay.
I think it's good because you've given perspective, because everyone's got, you're right, like what we're talking about, like no one wants to fully divulge their financial position, but if you can like see other people doing things, like we're all just trying to do the same thing, like we're all, there's nothing to be ashamed of in being thrifty. It's actually, I love it, like being as resourceful as possible, like hate waste.
Every single thing in the fridge must be used. If
Yes.
that's frittata, everything is being used in this fridge. Because I have a disease in my mind where it's like, I know the price of every single grocery that is in the fridge and it must be used to the maximum capacity.
Same. I'm like, when I open the fridge, I see like dollar signs. I don't see the products. I see dollar signs and use by dates. And then they all do a mathematical equation in my head. And then I come up with a spaghetti bolognese with smoked salmon and asparagus with some Parmesan cheese.
100%.
And that's what dinner is.
Yep. The expiry date on this creme fraiche that was $6.50 for this small ass tub is being used in a beautiful dip. Okay. Like
we're having people over because I need to make creme fraiche dip.
Yeah. I feel like we're such soul sisters on like resourcefulness and like our scarcity mindset is used in the most creative homemaker way possible. Like we're squeezing every last drop out of that lemon. Okay.
Yeah. That's so funny you mentioned that because I literally spent last Friday night getting all of my lemons out of the fridge and I hand squeezed every single one of them because they were starting to turn. I was like, if you think I'm going to throw out those lemons, you've got another thing coming. And Jake wasn't even here, so I put on Better Homes and Gardens, squeezed my lemons, and I've got a whole jar of fresh lemon juice this week.
You know what? You're a modern day Martha Stewart, babe. That's what I've got to say. Who, by the way, is such a fucking North Star in terms of like enterprising, like being a homemaker. Like she is definitely a North Star. But yeah.
Now, Jess, what's a key bit of financial literacy advice you'd be giving to your son and why and when would you do that?
I think what I want from my son as it relates to like financial literacy, investing, and like having a really bright future, which just pausing on that, I've already set that up for him, to be honest. I've set him up with accounts and investment streams that I put into every single month so that he is set up to have way more cushioning than what I did. I want him to not feel scarcity mindset necessarily, but I do want him to have a really strong work ethic. So he may not know about these set accounts because I do want him to have that work ethic, and I want him to get a sense of achievement from doing something and growing something and making something for himself. But in terms of advice for him, I think saving something, always having something in your back pocket, whatever that means for you, is something that I want to sort of give to him as a lesson.
Definitely. I think, yeah, and I've spoken about that too, just making, we want to pass on generational wealth, but we also want our kids to learn the value of money. And most parents, I'm sure, would agree with that strategy or be on the journey to executing that strategy as well. So giving them the right sort of tools to do it themselves, but then knowing that the world is changing and, prices of things are going up and wages are kind of going like this.
Yeah.
So having things in our back pocket for our kids, but also encouraging our kids to have something in their back pocket. I like that. That's very achievable advice, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Now, finally, Jess, on the topic of advice, what's a key piece of advice you'd received that changed your money mentality and gave you clarity for the future and for your own wealth building?
I think that it's the simple one-liner that I've spoken about and touched on, which is like buy low, sell high. It's just a concept. And whatever that means to you, it can be applied to anything. And sometimes, selling might not come for 10 years, 20 years, what have you. So I think that is like the key one as it relates to like investing and, timing coming into that. We spoke about that a lot. That's a very simple concept for someone to fathom. And then advice in general, I think, I don't want to tell people how to live their lives, but I think living below your means is always a smart decision, not spending money that you don't necessarily have. But yeah, I think that's it. Like living below your means is a smart thing to do. And nothing is really beneath you in terms of how you want to make money. If you want to carry a table up the street and sell it for $700, go ahead.
That's it. It's very down to earth and very relatable advice, and it's all achievable things that we can be doing to help shift our money mentality and look for resources and look for other opportunities, continue to learn, continue to be curious, do some trials, play around with it, have a go at your own examples, whether that is putting a little bit of money into crypto or putting a little bit of money aside for your kids or putting a bit of money aside for a house deposit, whatever that looks like for you, or having different conversations. I've been open about my experience with purchasing a property with my brother in that, we went down a different road together. Obviously, we partnered up, but then there were some other factors as a part of that. And, looking at different arrangements that you can do within your means and within your own network.
I actually do have one last piece of financial advice. Get a prenup. Get a prenup. Get a prenup. And I say that for all parties involved. It's an experience that, I've gone through with my partner and like creating what that looks like. And I think that it is good advice that it does empower women to have an idea. It's insurance on your relationship. People don't have to agree with me, but it's my advice if people want to take it or not. You can also get a post-nup too. If you don't want to do it pre-marriage, you can also do it post-marriage. But it's interesting, like when you're with someone, particularly my partner, who's like the whole world is ahead of him and he's such an abundance mindset person, we do have a way of looking at finances, which is like his, mine, ours. And that's a really interesting and also uncomfortable thing to be doing. That's something that we're going through. And yeah, that would be my advice is to get a prenup, because I have seen it end badly. It's insurance, right? It's another form of insurance. It's not fun, but would you buy a house without insurance? So
no. Would you own and drive a car without insurance? No.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that, Jess. That dovetails beautifully into an episode I recorded with Yvette Bales, family lawyer, and we discussed exactly that. exactly that. Like, why are we talking about prenups? When do we need to talk about them? What's a postnup?
Yep.
It's so valuable, and
Love
like you said, so uncomfy. Like it's uncomfy conversations, but if you get on the same page and you can align your money blueprint with your
Mhm.
partner, and protect assets, obviously, is the main part of that, is, so valuable because you can have those conversations early and then not be left to, have the undoing, which can happen and
It can
happens
happen,
more
for sure.
frequently.
We've both called off engagements. It can happen,
Yeah, yeah,
for
totally.
sure. Actually, you know what?
Yeah,
When I talk to you, I always get little sparks of thoughts. And another piece of advice for someone that's like, I
love
don't want
it.
to tell you what to do. Here's me telling you what to do. When I bought my home at the age of 22 and I got this massive financial responsibility, I started doing a budget spreadsheet. Every year since then, I've done a budget spreadsheet just so I can see and talk about being uncomfortable. What's coming in and what's going out? What are my obligations? What are my bills? And I'll bucket them and I'll make it cute. Okay, it's color coded. All right. Like I'm a creative. So if I'm going to be dealing with, math and numbers, it's going to look cute. What's coming in? What's going out? What's left over? And there has been times for sure, like when I first moved to New York, like I said, very much not rich, very much struggling, that I was confronted with, okay, cool. $16 is left over. Got it. All right. What do we need to do to ramp this up? So my advice would be do a budget spreadsheet, get uncomfortable. Like that's another thing that, I find a lot of my friends aren't realizing where their money's going or they're spending without knowing. I think that when you have a sense of control of like, okay, cool, I have a budget of $500 a week that I can put towards entertainment or doing whatever I want to do with. Like, big fan of women doing whatever the fuck they want to do with their money, but understanding what is coming in, what is going out, what is left over, what do you do with that? I think everyone should have a budget spreadsheet for their life.
And it's another scary word, right? Budget. I never really fully understood what it meant. I was, but you've just explained it beautifully. I mean, I obviously I understand it now, but that is so key. What's coming in? Because like, where do you start with a budget? I'm like, for me, a budget sounded like a luxury item, like a budget. Oh, like how do I get one of those? But it's not. It's a practical tool. It's what your starting point is. Okay, well, what have you got? What's coming in? What's your paycheck? What revenue do you have coming in each month or week or whatever, and what's going out, because we're humans and we all cost money, which was another interesting conversation we had after I went on mat leave. You have that chat and you work out what it looks like for you afterwards, but at the end of the day, I'm a human and I still cost money. So it's like, well, that needs to be factored into the budget, and whether it's a household budget or a personal budget, however you want to manage it, is up to you. But then looking at what you've got left over, and that was also another scary thing. I thought, I was like, left over, what do I have left? I don't have anything left over. But you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it is $16, and other times you might have $500 left over, and it's sort of like, okay, well then how can I split that up? That's my $100 to start into crypto. That's my $100 I'm going to start into the stock market, or start and build from there. But yes, that is such valuable advice. The budget shouldn't be a scary thing. And do you know what? It's really funny. Like Jake having an abundance mindset and he's quite crafty with money. He's good with it. But there's a certain amount of things he's actually not good with money, and he's had to educate himself. And our broker actually kept saying to us, you need to do a budget. You need to do a budget. And Jake was like, oh, I don't want to do a budget. It's too hard. Like, oh, it's too much work. Anyway, he put together one, and now he's obsessed with the budget because we can refer to it and we can look at it and go, like, I just did an episode recently about bill shock. Yeah, like when you get a massive bill that you kind of weren't expecting, but if you factored it into your budget and it was a seasonal bill, so it's sort of like, okay, but not getting scared about that, then letting that disrupt your future thoughts on money. It's 100%. It's all intertwined.
I know it sounds so boring, right? Like budget spreadsheet, but like, let's put some marketing spiel on it. Like paint a picture for yourself. Paint a beautiful color-coded spreadsheet picture to see exactly what you can do with your current situation.
Exactly. That's beautiful advice. And yes, if you need to make it pretty and make it cute, then go ahead and do that, because whatever's going to help you engage with this information is going to be the most valuable way you're going to maximize your time and your effort from it all.
And I've actually sent templates to friends. I'm like, here's the template. Do what you want with it. Yep.
I love that. Well, and that's the thing too. That's information sharing. That's things that you obviously saw that some of your friends might have needed or they were talking about, and you're like, hey, I've got this thing. I've got this really cute spreadsheet that you definitely need to have a squeeze at. Make it your own.
Spreadsheet. I'm going to call it that from now on.
Really cute spreadsheet. I love it. Well, thank you, Jess, for joining us again on the Wing podcast. I feel like we got a lot of useful information, tips and tricks, personal experience, all blended together. And I really hope that our listeners will get some value out of this episode, which I'm sure they will. So thank you so much, Jess, for joining us.
Of course. I'll chat to you soon.
Sounds good. We'll include the links and the topics discussed in our podcast post on Instagram so that you're able to reference these in your own time. But if you have any questions for me or if you have any questions for Jess, please feel free to reach out to us. Instagram is probably the best way to catch either of us, and just shoot us a message and we can get back to you and help you on your journey if there's certain things that you're stuck with or certain things you want to know more information about. Obviously, again, this is not financial advice. This is personal experience being shared so that you can have some perspective on money and wealth creation and building towards financial freedom. So thank you so much, ladies, for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Wing.
Enjoyed the episode? Hit follow and check out _wing pod Oz on Instagram for a dose of wisdom getting you on the right path to success.